Alright, so I was planning on coming out here a little bit earlier in the day. But you know, those afternoon naps once you get off work, that's a little bit longer. So, plan today is to come out, get the Mustang 2 crossmember just mocked up. So, I think I'm going to need, well, I definitely need the taller ones. So, I think these are 2x4s. The frame rails, cut two sections down like the 2x3s up here. So I'll cut these down, or cut two sections probably similar length to that, enough to fit this and the top plate on there. And then I'm about to build some angles off of it. So it's going to be a little bit of a process. But I just want to mock up the cross member so I can start seeing where it's going to sit, and then I'll determine the angles I'm about to cut to tie the 2x4s into the frame rail I already welded in there. So yeah, it's going to be a weird angle. It might be a couple pieces, and then I'll definitely fish plate those. But I just want to, well, I'd rather just show you guys. So, at least just start getting some of these parts out. Like, get those out and cut what I need. So, well, they're a little too big to mock up in there, but get enough of the frame rail, tack it all into place, get everything mocked up, make sure I have all the pieces for the Mustang 2, and start trying to get that welded into place. I said I think I have everything for it. I bought the whole kit, so it should all be there. One concern, I think I might have to get a plate that's a little bit thicker. So I think this is 4x2. I think the frame rail for the cross member that I ordered, or the kit, supposed to be like 2 5/8. So I might get a plate just to thicken it up a little bit, weld that on there, and that'll give me the width I need so everything lines up. Yeah, so I'm probably, one thing I don't want to cut it down just yet, so I might cut it a little bit longer, and then that'll leave me some room, so when I do need to cut that angle, I can cut that into the piece off the car rather than tacked onto the cross member, if that makes sense, because it's not going to be just straight 45. It'll probably be, I'd have to cut it, it'd be two different ways, so I'd have to cut it so I don't know. It'd be a weird cut. I might get some cardboard or something to try to get the angles right. Just cardboard and tape and try to match everything up. So my main concern be connecting that frame rail to that one, and then worry about the front later. But as I mentioned in the previous one about trying to find the angle, I'm gonna try to give it a little bit of rake, probably just a degree or two just forward, but I'm gonna find some points on the body like off the old one. I know the wheels are going to be tucked up a little bit more. We'll try to get a baseline of where the floor is going to be. So what I'll do is I'll get that height determined, and then I might just use jack stands instead of these. Just get them to the right height and run a tape line to the front and back of the car, so I know where everything's level and where I need to mock up the right height for the front. So I'm still debating on if I want to do 20s or 18s. If I do 20s, it might be on like that profile of tire, rather than like that profile tire. So we'll see once we get to it. I know it's going to definitely be a determining factor for it. I think there's clearance once all this is cut out. There should be plenty of clearance for the 20s. I know there are some stock PTs that run 20s with low profiles, but I kind of do want at least a little bit of meat on the back of the car. So not too low profiles. I think these are what, 35 series. So at least a 45 on there. But we'll see. The back's going to be a lot more forgiving because I'm going to be able to mini tub it. Where the front, I'm not sure what the clearance once the fender and everything's on, because that's going to close up the gap a lot. But I do want it to fill up the wheel well. So let me get everything out of the back of the car, get the cross member out, to start mocking up some stuff. I know there's going to be some things I need to weld onto it. There's like a spacer that goes in here, and then a bracket I think that goes off the back. You need to weld that, and then obviously the top hats, and then just try to get a feel for what all is going to be needed, and then determine. I don't think it's the bottom that needs to go where the ride height is, or where the need to figure out where the spindle's going to sit, so that way I know how high or low it is going to mount eventually, which I think it might be around there. Might be a tad bit lower, but about there is where it's going to sit. But yeah, that's kind of the plan so far. Alright, so this is kind of where I'm at right now with the front suspension and everything. These are the lower A-arms. I have the upper ones back there in the box still. And I was looking up some more information, and I think after, because the kit I ordered was for a 35 through 40 Ford, and I should have just went universal one, and I would have been able to use the, well, it might not be too late, but that'd be an extra $500. But I think I'm gonna make this work. So when I look up online and they say after you box that frame for the cards this kit's for, the overall length on, or the width of the frame should be 2 5/8. So with this being 2, I might have to find a plate, which shouldn't be that hard to find. I think there's a metal depot or something like that not too far from here. Just find a 5/8 inch plate, weld it on to this backside. I might not go the full, well, yeah, I'll probably just go the full 2 inches, weld that to it, and that'll give me the width I need for that section. And I'll only get enough for the width of this, maybe a 1/2 inch longer on each side. So I'll line up with that. And the reason you want it a little bit thicker, yeah, I need a new camera mount. This one broke. So if it was 2 inches, it'd pretty much sit right on this, and you want to have it stepped out a little bit. So this one's taller too, so I'd sit up a little bit and just out slightly. So there'll be a gap between there, about 5/8 of an inch. So yeah, we'll get that situated, or that'll be the main thing. And then once I put the taller one on here, it is going to stick up a little bit on the back side. So when that happens, I'll take a little bit, well, let's see, So the taller part goes up front. So whatever side sticks up more, I'll just take a little bit out of this part here just to get everything flush here, if that makes sense, or have it sitting flat. So these are angled for, I think it's a 3% rake or something like that in there. So when you stop, it takes in that into account for like the suspension diving and all that. That's why it's at an angle. So I want to get that flat back on there. So just have to take a little bit out. So probably this back side, I don't think this front side is going to stick up too much, or be level with, or even with this. If I have to add a little bit of material here or there, I can, but I think I'm just going to have to take a little bit out of that one, if you guys are following along. So we're good there, but I do want to get these mocked up in there. I still need to look on what the reference for this, for the center line of the wheel, once everything's installed, so that once it's up here, I know where the height needs to be. Like I said, I want to drop it a little bit just to fill in some of the wheel gap. Now this one's not, it's probably an inch more than the stock ones with, well, I guess those are stock wheels, but full weight under the car. You guys can see how bad the wheel gap is. Like, definitely want to close that up and close that up. So figure with some 20s it should close up fairly easily, but I still have to raise the, what do I want to say, the axle for the rear. I still have to raise that up, even though it will be 20s versus 17s. That's only an inch and a half each way. So I had to take all that into account. Like I said, it's my first time doing it, so I'm still learning. But we are going to make it happen. Like I said, I haven't taken my time on it. Before, I probably would have just started cutting stuff, welding it, chopping it off, adjusting it, re-welding it, and I don't want to do that. Just want to measure multiple times, cut once, weld it in, and call it good there. Probably come out tomorrow and start tacking these into place. I'll probably do a little bit more homework, watch another video or two. But yeah, so in theory, I take this out, take this bolt out. This spacer here goes in between the cross member, so it would sit in there in between these holes. That will get welded in the inside. This will sit on the back side of it, and this will also get welded to the back side of the cross member. I think around here, and then that will get welded to the back. Now, I believe it's supposed to be horizontal to the cross member, so I have to keep that in mind. I think that's just for support. So I do plan to get it mocked up tonight. So probably take it apart, slide everything in, and just see how it adjusts. I know someplace, or I was reading somewhere, I think these might have to get opened up, and looking at them, looking at that bolt, I think they will. So let's see. Yeah, those definitely gonna have to get opened up a little bit. So I have a step bit sitting around here somewhere. So that's the plan for tonight. Just get those opened up, get the lower control arms mocked up. In the morning, I'll try to find a plate so I could Add a little bit of width to this. I'll get these cut down to about sections like this. And eventually get it mocked up so we can start getting it in place to see where we need to go from there. Like I said, I know I'm going to have to cut a lot of this out of the PT and just make it work. So I knew a lot of modification was going to have to happen, so let me find my step bit and my drill, open these up, and I'll cut you guys back on here in a little bit. I know it's a long video of me just talking, but I just like talking through my thought process so you guys know where I'm coming from. And I'm pretty sure nobody else is going to attempt to LS swap PT Cruiser anytime soon. They'll probably go Hemi with it. And I was thinking, if I don't LS it, the only other motor option I would do, well, there's two. Hellcat would be nice, but my pockets aren't there. The LS is a lot cheaper. But the other thing I was thinking, that new Hurricane motor from Dodge, you know, if somebody from Dodge did happen to stumble across the build and wanted to send one out, I would throw the Hurricane in there. But as of now, it's going LS. But yeah, let me stop talking and get back to it. Alright, so just drilled these out. So I drilled those out to fit that bolt through, and I was going to mock everything up today, but I think I might have to clearance these a little bit. Just take a little bit off of one side or the other to be able to get it to fit in there nice and snug. So that pretty much braces these two walls here, and then just helps stiffen it up. Eventually that will be welded on the inside as much as you can get around, and then I'll have to take a little bit off of this edge too. I won't do anything with this side, just to get that side to fit. So just needs a little bit. So that'll eventually go there and then get welded on to the cross member itself. So that'll be one of the first things I do in the morning, and then I'll go out and look for that plate. So yeah, right now it's starting to get a little dark, but you gotta love that view from the garage with those sunsets. You can't beat it. Let's see. You can't beat it. Got a little bit of downtown Denver over here, but yeah, that mountain view with those sunsets, can't beat it. Like I said, it's getting a little dark, so I'm gonna call it a night with this. Get the bike back inside, and then in the morning I'll clearance those, go out look for that plate, and start with a little bit of welding. Alright, so just got back, picked up this plate. It's a little thicker than I need, but that's no problem. We could grind it down a little bit. So where I left off yesterday is I'm gonna have to grind this down a little bit to get it to clear that. So probably about 1/8 inch off of there, and then just a little bit off of here. I seen one guy, he actually like tried to widen this a little bit, like push it out with the vise and broke his vise, and then ended up just grinding down the one for the other side. So that's all I'll do. It shouldn't take too much. So grind both these down, and we'll go from there. But after that, once those are down, then yeah, I'm babysitting your dog. That's the plan. yes, I'll get the chop saw, some grinding disc, welder out, and we'll go from there. But I'll probably time lapse a little bit. If not, I'll just cut you guys on in between each stage, and hopefully I could get, well, let's see, I get frame rails on here, get them widened, get the top hats on, and then determine on where it'll sit as far as length. So I'll get the wheelbase measured out, try to get the car leveled down, or leveled to where it needs to go, and then get the spindles on also. And once these are parallel to the ground and the spindles are on, that'll show me where I would need to set that in the car to get the right height I want. In order to do that, I might take one of the 20s off of here and just mock it up with it so I can see how a 20 looks versus I know how the 17s look. I don't have an 18 laying around, so we'll see how the 20s look and see if we'll go with that, or if we'll go 18s and a little bit more sidewall. So let me stop talking and get started. Alright, this is where I'm at so far. So got these ground down or shortened up and fitting nice and snug. I didn't want to do too much and have them loose in there, even though they will be welded. So the side I did grind down, I did bevel it already. So eventually, these are cut down, just let them cool off a little bit. So I don't want to put them up against that bushing and have them start melting it. So they're nice and snug, nice tight fit. So once they cool down, I'll get those in place. And let's see, cool down a little bit. So eventually that'll go in there, nice and snug. And then this part will be parallel with that. So I'll get welded on like that also. So I still got a little heat in it. But what I'm planning to do, I'll get them on there, I'll get them tacked down. I'll just throw a quick tack on probably 4 of the corners. So probably 3 of the cylinder and then 1 on the end of there. And throw a few tacks in here. I'll just throw a few tacks, keep it in place. Then I'll remove the A-arm with the bushings because I don't want too much heat going in there, melting the bushings in there. So a few tacks, take the lower arms off, and then weld this all the way up, or as much as I can. Same thing with this, weld as much as I can, and then weld that brace completely. So that's the plan. Just a little makeshift table with the step stool, nothing too fancy. Nothing has to be leveled just yet with this part. So as long as these holes line up, I'll keep the bolt in there when I'm welding it, just to keep everything lined up. But yeah, these should be cooled down enough. Pretty soon fire up the welder and we'll go from there. Yeah, let's see. I did this one first, so it's a little bit easier to handle. And I missed my tripod already. Like I said, I broke it, so it's gonna be a little different for a while. Might need to take a little bit more out. Right just in here. Yeah, I'll take just a little bit out, so that way it's not biting into the bushing, and that's what it'll look like eventually. Yeah, I think that's pretty straight right there. So let me take a little bit out of here and get everything lined up, throw some tacks on it. I'll cut you guys back on once the tacks are on it. Alright, so they're not the prettiest, but I am getting a lot better. I ran into some problems with the wire feeding right. Every now and then the swing nut will tighten up and stop the wire from feeding. I know there's a part that goes in there. I just haven't got around to ordering the replacement. But yeah, as long as I'm on it and I loosen it up every few minutes, it's fine. But yeah, all that wire pretty much wasted. So let's get to the welds. Looking pretty good. Real good on this side. Probably could have went with, my buddy's gonna tell me, more heat. So far so good. The bottom side was a lot better than this top side, but we are getting there. I'll probably go through, fill in some of these gaps here, and that little piece there. So I'll fire back up and fill in those. Yeah, so filling that. Yeah, I don't think it needs it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But yeah, they stayed pretty square. This one's a little tight, but that's why you have a hammer, right? But yeah, let me fill in that. Wow, like I said, that doesn't really need it, but I'm gonna throw a tack in there. Also, try to start stacking a little bit. But yeah, so for the most part, I feel confident in them. The thicker metal is a lot easier for me. I'm still doing small stuff here and there, so we'll get there. Working on the settings on the machine and everything, so probably could have used a little bit more heat. And I can't like do a continuous weld the whole way because it is a 120. I wish I'd put the 240 in the garage, but I didn't. So if I weld too long, it tends to pop the breaker, so I got to go run to the back of the house, reset it, come back out here, and try not to pop it again. So that's why I just do little sections here and there. So try to connect them all the way instead of just tack. So could probably go a little bit longer than that next time. I probably could have done the whole thing here, but like I said, I didn't want to keep popping the breaker. But yeah, let me fill this in. I'll let it cool down before I throw the the A-arms back on, and then I'll get to chopping down some of the 2x4 frame rail. I'll chop that down, probably, like I said, probably a foot section. Nah, I'll go a little bit longer than that. So I think these are about 6 inches. So probably about 5 to 6 inches on each side. So probably 18-inch sections. And then once it's in there, then I can determine on the angle to cut it and all that. So I don't want to cut it too short and not give myself enough room to cut. But yeah, let me stop talking. I'll put the camera back down for a little bit. Catch you guys on here in a little bit. Alright, so this is where I'm at now. Took some measurements, got the center line of the cross member, which I don't think's relevant right now, but I just marked that on both sides along with the center of it. And then the section I cut for the frame rails, which these eventually, like I said, we'll get that 5/8 inch plate welded on the front of here just to help space it out to what the measurements for this cross member should be with the whole kit. So like I was saying, it's right under 2 inches, which is slightly over 1.5 inches, which is 1 and 9/16. So that's where the front of the spring tower is going to be. So that's this side. So the front of it's going to sit 1 and 9/16 in front of that, which is pretty much marked where this line is, and that's the difference of it. So have all that marked, and eventually that'll be tacked onto there once it's spaced out a little bit. So that's all good. And then on both sides, I measured 5 inches from the rear of this to the back of the shock tower, spring tower, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be identical on both sides. So once both of these are welded on, I'll have 5 inches from the back of that where I could cut what I need to cut at whatever angle to tie it into the frame rails, which I know is going to have a crazy drop depending on how high it's going to sit, but I know it's going to drop down a little bit and have to come back in, I think. So we'll get to that when we get to that. I'll probably have a lot of cardboard mock-up for that, so I get all the angles just right. As long as I get this centered and those all lined up, get the control arms and everything on, we should be good up to that point. And then we'll just have to go over to the car, start chopping it up, and see how much of the existing frame, so how much of this we'll have to cut out, which eventually it's probably going to be all of it, because we won't need these anymore. So pretty much all this will be cut out, and those frame rails eventually be tied into here so I could bolt it on. That's what I'm thinking. Because trying to drop the motor in here, which I guess if the hood's off and the firewall's pushed back, should just drop straight in. But we'll see. We'll see if I want to bolt it in or weld it in, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I have it marked where everything's going to sit. So the next step will be get this thick plate. Which, like I said, I have to grind this down a little bit. It's a little, I think this is 3/4. So I'll have to grind that down a little bit, cut it out, and set it in there. Probably about right there, weld it in. I know my welder's not rated to weld something this thick, but as long as this gets welded to that and not the other way around, we should be good. Like I said, I know it's going to add a little bit of weight on this side, but we should be good. And then I'll determine if I want to cut this out, like to make this level, or just take it off of here. So however much is sitting up above that, I'll just take it off of this section here, if that makes sense, because the frame rail is supposed to be level with this. So it might be easier to notch this out. So draw a straight line up to about here, cut that out and just force this side flat, or just mark the difference and take it out of there. So we'll determine when we get to that point, which there's not a whole lot there. So let's see, would that probably be almost ½ an inch to get it level. So we'll see what I end up doing. I might take that practice piece or that extra piece and see how hard it would be to just cut that and bend it down so it's flush. Alright, so I know I mentioned a couple ways I was thinking about getting this to even out, and got it to even out. See, nothing's cut up here. What I did was just notch down here the same distance, or the height that I was sticking up here and here. So here's like 1/4 inch, back here is about ½ an inch. So I notched that, and just pretty much cut a slit in there. And I had to trim this front lip also, but you see how it's even now, or level with it. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this side, and then work on building that plate off of it. And what I'm thinking, I did have a scrap piece, I was thinking about cutting that out and lowering it, but I think this way makes a little bit more sense. That's it, nice and level. I'm good to go. Could probably tweak it a little bit. So yeah, I'll weld this in first, and then I'll weld. Oh, well, I'm gonna have to remark it a little bit. Just have to keep in mind that did I flip it around? I did something where my mark for 1 9/16 is back, so I'm gonna have to move that up. I'm gonna have to remark or double check the distance because I want them equal. If that makes sense. So I'm still gonna notch it, and then I'll mark the distance here and here, try to keep them the same. If I have to cut one side so they're equal out, so be it. But yeah, we'll get to it. But yeah, with this extra piece here, I'm thinking about, it's a little short, but I have another one of these, and I could cut the 5/8 out of here, just do a cut there and on the other side, and keep it the same length, and weld that on here. That way it's still strong, it gives me the space I need, and it's not as heavy as that 3/4 inch plate, which I did cut some 1 inch strips down. Not the best, but I was going to grind these down to 5/8 and weld them on there, just the spacers, which wouldn't be horrible, but I don't think it's going to be as secure as cutting one of those extra tubes up, or as even. It'd be a lot easier to get it even cut at 5/8 from there. Well, 5/8 cut from there, can just use that C channel or the C portion of it and weld it on the outside of there. That makes sense. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but I think it's gonna weld better with the thinner piece rather than that thick 3/8, or no, that's 3/4 piece. I'm gonna be able to get more heat in here, make sure everything welds like it should, and get the spacing I need from it. So cut the camera off, knock out this side with the notches, get it level, and then we'll work on getting the width we need for the spring towers. So yeah, which we'll still need. It'll still be that 1 9/16 in front of the cross member, but that distance is gonna step it out to about there. So yeah, let me knock that out and I'll cut you guys back on when it's all done. Alright, so I'm gonna call it a day on this project. So that's where we're at. I did tack these into place just so everything is level, not knocking anything out of place tomorrow when I come back. So same gap on both sides. Everything's angled the same on each side. So either tomorrow or the next time I find myself out here, we will start getting the shock towers on, or spring towers, whatever you want to call them, top hats. We'll get those on, add the little 5/8 extension to the frame so everything lines up, and we will be test fitting the upper control arms also, and probably throw the spindles on there. I think I have to get some grease for these. I might have the grease gun sitting around somewhere, but start testing everything out. Like I said, that would pretty much be how it's supposed to be when it's on the ground, is the lower control arms parallel. So we'll mess around with that a little bit. We'll get this all welded up. So I'll weld this up, weld the bottom, weld that gap up, and try to weld up as much as I can on the inside. Weld this top piece up all along here on both sides, and like I said, add the extensions, get the shock towers on, and we'll go from there. But yes, been out here a lot longer than I thought I would. Showing 96 in the garage, almost 97, so it's time to go cool down for a bit, get the Monty back in, and catch you guys on next time.